Greetings, I'm Doc V. And today I would like to talk a little bit about the political arena. Many of you have heard of Super Tuesday, where the voters get together and establish the electorates for the Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee for president. Many people in the black race just feel that automatically we're Democrat. Period. Democrats try to help people of other races, help the poor, divide the riches, tax the millionaires higher and lower taxes on the common man. A lot of people feel, in summary, that if you're a black male or a black female or in the African American community or the Hispanic community or anything other than the rich, white elites, that automatically you're a Democrat. Well, I would like to share something with you. I took an examination recently. This exam was a test of about 30 or 40 questions. And if you answered these questions honestly, it would tell you if your views represented the Republicans or the Democrat. The Republican views or the Democratic views. And I thought that this was very interesting. So I took the test, sat down, turned the TV off, got on my computer very quietly, and the answers were not true, false, but disagree, strongly disagree, or agree, strongly agree, or you're neutral. There's about 40, 50 questions. And I sat there and I answered the questions as honestly as I possibly could. After about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I hit the button and the thing started moving around, and then it started telling me what my views were and where I leaned toward, and then all of a sudden the page started coming up. Boom! The test results indicated that my views were mostly Republican views. Wow. I was not really surprised because I was aware that some of my views represented the far left Democratic views, and some represented the far right, and some I was kind of middle of the road. We need to know what the parties stand for. And I understand that people that are wealthier and have their own businesses, they're going to go more toward the Republican side, and people that just need a helping hand want to go toward the Democratic side. I can see some strong points on both sides. Now, currently, we have a Republican nominee that looks like he is going to win the nomination for the Republican Party to campaign for the presidency of the United States. And on the Democratic side, it looks like we have our representative, or the representative for the Democratic side. And the battle is being gauged and prepared for that final vote in November. Now, I would like to share something with you all concerning why some of my views are middle of the road, or maybe sometimes toward the Republican side. Y'all probably like, I gotta hear this. What does he have to say? Well, listen. Before I moved here to Atlanta, I was in my 20s. I had graduated from college and I was at home trying to find work. It was during a low part of the economy, I think in the late 80s or around in there somewhere. And I was visiting a friend at an apartment complex. The apartment complex was brand new. And this friend had to go take care of something, and it was warm outside, and I was kind of sitting around the patio, just trying to waiting around to see, what was going to happen. Just kind of, buying my time. I think it was the weekend, nothing much was happening. Anyway, these two African-American young ladies were talking, and I couldn't help but overhear their conversation. They talked about different things, hairstyles, fashion, need a new car, what have you. But this stuck with me, and I will not forget this. One young lady was talking about she was on Section 8. And the other young lady said, yeah, I'm on Section 8 also. I only pay $50 a month. And I've got this 2-bedroom apartment. I got some furniture from the not consignment shop, but from the Goodwill store. And some parents gave me some things. I got a used car. I'm doing all right. I got my little son here, and I got my son and my daughter, and I pay $50 a month. And the young lady was like, well, I can't believe that. I got to pay $150, $175, almost $200 a month. How come you only pay $50 on Section 8 and I pay $175 on Section 8? What's going on? The young lady that was paying $50 on Section 8, she said, oh, girl, that's simple. I've got 2 babies and you only have 1. So they're giving me more aid. So all I have to pay is $50 a month for this apartment. If you want your cost or your rent to go down, you need to go out and find one of these guys out here, get pregnant, have another baby, and then they'll drop yours down also to $50 a month. I could not believe what I was hearing. I said, is that what is coming to? Bulking and corrupting the system to try to get help, to try to get aid from the government by having a careless, irresponsible life. I said, I know it's time for me to get out of town. I started checking bus fare and plane flights and getting my car together. I said, I've got to get out of this little one-horse town. I cannot believe this. I could not believe it. Many people, maybe not now because the system and the requirements have changed to be able to get aid from the government. Many things have changed, but back then, this turned me off really bad. It really made me think some not kind thoughts about how some of our people are carrying on. I couldn't believe it. To get impregnated just so the government can help you out. The daddy was insignificant. There was no dad in their lives. They just got a baby. This made me start researching political views, the Democrats versus the Republicans. Now, of course, there's views on abortion and equal woman's right. There's rules and laws concerning gay rights, gay marriage. There's rules concerning what is considered a crime or a hate crime, and what is considered police brutality. And there's many things that went back and forth on the questionnaire. I answered the questions honestly. And I found that although I agree that the government should help those that need assistance, I do not feel that the government should be used just to support someone being lazy with no motivation and not fighting and working hard for their lives. I used to wonder why my dad was so hard on me, and I bring my dad up a lot. I love my dad, and when I make it to heaven and I see him, I'm gonna say, Dad, Dad, because I didn't know, which was my last video, and I don't want to repeat that, but I was not aware of the things that and the burdens that he was carrying concerning himself, concerning his family, concerning folks at the church that were hurting and needing help, and not wanting his boys and his daughter to be a statistic. I'm one of 4 siblings. I have an older sister, me and 2 younger brothers. And we came along like 1, 2, 3, 4. We are all together. And I love my family. I love the unity that we had. I love our home church. Our church seemed to be a fountain of love and energy and purpose that guided and directed us on how to live right and how to be morally right and to be positive contributors to society. However, I did see some issues where there were out of wedlock pregnancies, people collecting unemployment, people that couldn't keep a job, or people that went off to college and were able to get placed in a position or in a job, and others that fell by the wayside and ended up getting food stamps, ended up having to live in a care home, and then some excelled and went out of town, and some were just stuck in the mean streets. And I didn't know what made the difference until now. Well, not now, but until later on in life. I realized that strong love, focus, and direction that was put on me by my father and my mother to handle your business, to go to school, to be the best you can be. And they enforced that on me. They did not tell me, well, son, if you want to, you can move out, or if you want, you can stay here. Or if you want to go to college, you can go to college, or join the army, you can just do whatever you want to do. Not in my house. My dad said, you're getting out of here. When it's time to go, you're going to be getting to college, you're going to get a job, you're going to join the army, you're going to start collecting items to build a tent out in the woods somewhere because you're not staying here. And I just couldn't understand why. Why is he so mean? Why can't I have a good time and play with my other friends? And now I understand, because many of those other friends, they did not get training. Some of them did not go to the military. Some of them did not go to college and push and press to better themselves because no one was behind them and pushing them. Let's get back to politics. A couple of things most laymen do not realize is that the President of the United States is not a dictator. The President of the United States does not have all rule. There is a system of checks and balances. You have the judicial system, you have the executive office, which is comprised of the president and the vice president, and you have the legislative branch and the Senate. These all come together to look at bills presented by the president, and by a majority 2-to-1 vote, or majority unanimous 3-0 vote, they have to be passed. And if these bills are not passed, then they do not become law. There are some countries where there's a dictatorship, or there's a social situation where the wealth is divided. In the United States, you can have billionaires, trillionaires, and you're going to have poor people. And some of these other communist and socialist countries, no one's going to get $1 billion. If he learns how to figure out how to get $1 billion, they're going to siphon it off and spread it out where they want it. So the United States is very unique in its democratic alignment. There are some countries, I was telling some of my students, where there are some countries where women are not allowed to be out at night by themselves, or they could get arrested or physically harmed. There are some places, I was telling my students, where if a student got smart with a teacher or wouldn't be quiet in class, the teacher could go upside the head. And they were shocked, like, what? Are you kidding me? I told my students this, and they didn't believe it. The teachers could hit us when I was in elementary school. Took a long paddle, about, I don't know, 3-4 feet long, and they made you bend over and hold your legs or hold your ankle, and they get that paddle and they whop, and they'd hit you. And it hurt bad. For talking, disrupting class, I remember getting swatted more than one and more than 2 times. I never told my dad about it. Number one, I didn't want my dad coming down to the school and causing an uproar. And I didn't want my dad to whoop me when I got home, because why would a teacher have to whoop you and hit you? Of course, this has changed. And now if you hit your child, you can go to jail. It's really interesting. They don't want a man to discipline his child when he needs to be whooped or spanked. But when he gets 18, 19, 20, he goes out in the street and he becomes disrespectful to the law enforcement officers, and then they're allowed to beat him, tase him, hit him with the billy club, or even shoot him. So there are some things that have changed, some things for the better. There's protection against racism. Now, there's still racism. There are still places that I need not go, and I understand that. But things are better. Things are much better. There's consequences, more severe consequences for hate crimes. However, on the other end, some things were changed that should not be changed. There's several places in the Bible where it says, spare the rod and spoil the child. I was mentioning that to a student a few years back. And the student said, that doesn't mean you're going to hit the child with a rod. That means it's the rod, like a pointing stick where you're at the board, and it's the rod of correction where you're correcting problems and you're pointing at the board. And I said, no, young man. I said, go to Proverbs, go to the Bible and do a search, and you'll find several details about driving that bad spirit away from that child. I remember one time a young lady said to me, she said, if my mama hit me, I would beat her tail. And I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. My mother was 5'3". And if I wasn't able to dodge and get away and she caught me, wham! That was it. You were hit. My mom had a special style. You know, some people, they slap like this, wham. And then some people, they do the backhand, wham. My mom had a special technique. She went under the arm and went up. And your head just went up and spun. And you just tried to cover up. I was taught respect. I remember one time I was riding in the car and my mother was very upset. And she said a few words about just getting tired of me. And I'm riding in the passenger seat and I was like, yeah, Mom, I'm getting tired of you too. And why did I say that? Mom threw the most beautiful back fist, whap, hit me in the nose, and I went up and I went down into the seat. And I looked up, eyes watering, and all I could hear was my mom's voice. She said 3 words, I hope it's broke. Woo, 5'3", Boy, if they would have had cage fighting and MMA back then, my mom would have been champ in the height and the flyweight division. But anyway, getting to my point, I'm not saying children need to be abused and they don't need to be loved and talked to and lifted up and taught and led by example and by teaching. But I'm saying when there comes a point when a child just does not want to listen, does not want to pay attention to sound teaching and love and direction, then there's a time when that child needs to be dealt with. Now, I am definitely going to exercise my right to vote. Sometimes people vote on the candidate and not the party. As strong as my Republican views are, on this trip, I am not going to vote for the party, but I am going to vote for the candidate. You can fill in the spaces if you want. I believe a person's character and how a person represents himself and represents those around him says a lot. Number two, it really does not matter if the Democrats win or if the Republicans win. The God Almighty in heaven, He's in charge. He's in charge of the universe. He's in charge of the cities and countries on this earth. He's in charge of our individual lives. And He has angels assigned. And He has power and control over this society and situation of free choice, where our choices determine not only our place on this earth, but our eternal place. Because the Lord, He knows our name. He knows our name. I'm Doc V, and I'll see you next time.